Joining us now, New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, along with former federal prosecutor Jim Trusty. It's great to have you back on. First to you, Congresswoman, your reaction to this historic decision. There's a push by the president to codify Roe v. Wade in the law. Let me just give you an update. News coming in. 9 states are moving to ban abortion. There are trigger bans in more states. About 26 states in total are moving to restrict abortion. What happens next in Congress?
Well, here's what happens now. This is a win for the Constitution. All this case does is overturn Roe versus Wade and Casey and sends this back for the states and their elected representatives to decide. I come from the state of New York, which has a late-term abortion law. This law was defined by the Democrats duplicitously as a law to codify Roe versus Wade, which everyone knows is a first trimester abortion decision. This is late-term abortion in New York. And so it's really up to the states and their elected representatives to come out with an alternative. But this does not ban abortion, particularly in New York and some of the states that have some of the most extreme positions on abortion.
What was your reaction? Thank you, Congresswoman. Jim, what was your reaction when you heard the ruling? We have a new USA Today poll found a majority of people oppose overturning Roe v. Wade. What's your take?
Well, one thing is I'm not sure people really get what this ruling means. I think a lot of people are equating overturning Roe versus Wade with outlawing abortion, and it's clearly not. And really, for all the emotions, for all the, maybe well-deserved emotions associated with abortion, when you get down to it, Kavanaugh's concurrence has it right. He says, look, the issue before us is not the philosophy or the morality of abortion. It's what the U.S. Constitution has to do with abortion, what it has to say about abortion. And so this is really a question of federalism. I know it affects people's lives in a way that feels personal, but it was a very kind of academic, cerebral exercise where justices had to wrestle with things like stare decisis or precedent and determine whether or not the federal Constitution should remain expanded as it was in the 1970s under Roe versus Wade, and they chose to close that expansion and return it to the states. So yeah. I don't think it was surprising. I think it's an interesting read, but it's much less of the opinion poll on abortion that even Joe Biden seems to make it out as in his comments today.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it was susceptible to challenge. There's that on that side of it, and also there's privacy fights about it, too. Let's listen to the outrage from Democrat lawmakers today. Watch this.
It is clear that we just have to win a majority in November. Everything is at stake. If you're a woman, if you care about women, if you respect women, you know that this is a disgraceful judgment that they made.
Will you condemn the violence proposed by pro-abortion groups? Will she not condemn it? Are you not condemning the violence proposed by pro-abortion groups? So I guess no condemnation.
You see this turnout here? You ain't seen nothing yet. Women are going to control their bodies no matter how they try and stop us. The hell with the Supreme Court. We will defy them.
Okay, so AOC, Maxine Waters now telling Americans to take to the streets. AOC saying, quote, elections are not enough. So, Congresswoman, your reaction to these responses here, what will be the effect on the midterm elections?
Well, Maxine better not get looped in with Chuck Schumer and let the J6 committee convene again to try to go after them for their insurrectionary language. But look, I think that this is not going to have as big an impact on the midterms as they think it is, because as the guest on the other side there said, this is not a ban on abortion. It is a realignment of the Constitution. And even, as you mentioned, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said we need to have a conversation about this. And I'm quoting from the decision. It even said, she said in the past, Roe halted the political process, prolonged divisiveness, and even deferred the stable settlement of this issue. Now we're going to have this debate. Now we're going to have the debate we should have had 49 years ago. The public's going to get a right to decide. It's not going to be decided by justices that are appointed at the Supreme Court. We're going to have our elected representatives and the people decide what this moral decision is going to entail. I'm pro-life, and I'm unapologetically pro-life, but I think we need to have this debate, and we need to talk about it in a compassionate way where we respect the differences of others. And kudos to President Biden for at least taking a small step in condemning the violence and saying, or not condemning the violence, I should say he was hoping for peaceful protest. It's interesting that the Democrats refused to condemn the violence and they're not enforcing the law. Today, Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Thomas, and Justice Alito's addresses were being given out under protest in the Supreme Court today in direct violation of 18 U.S.C. 1507, which prohibits the parading or the protesting loudly and disruptively in front of justices' homes during the deliberative process.
Yeah,
let's hope that they stand up for this.
Yeah, because
against this.
Well, the issue is that Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett, in their confirmation hearings, to what the Congresswoman is saying, there's the footnote to that, Jim, is that they said they would reaffirm Roe v. Wade, and now they're sending it back to the states. And now there's a fight. Justice Alito saying, no, this will not hit contraception, and it will not hit same-sex marriage, but Clarence Thomas indicating it might.
That was actually the most dishonest or disingenuous part of President Biden's comments today, because he trotted out the language from Justice Thomas's concurrence, which was saying essentially that he questions whether there's even a thing called substantive due process, and therefore we should look at these other cases that dealt with contraception or same-sex marriages. That was a lonely voice. There was the majority opinion that expressly rejected that. So to trot that out and say this is where it's going, this is the slippery slope of this evil Supreme Court, was really wrong. It was really inflammatory for no reason, because the majority opinion absolutely shut that notion down.
So you don't think that gets
abortion.
touched? You don't think contraception or
No.
same-sex marriage doesn't get touched? Is that what you're saying?
No, I take them at their words. They say it's a different analysis. It's a different issue. You're not talking about prospective life. You're talking about other types of liberty interest. And so, again, I think you have to take them at their word. They expressly said it's not part of the equation. It's not coming. And yet a president announced it as if it was the majority opinion, which I thought was, throwing gas on an already very emotional fire.
Congresswoman Tenney, Jim Trusty, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good weekend.